Sorry, I'm a little bit late this week with the current astrological considerations for this week, but it's just been a little bit of unrest and angst in the atmospheres beginning last week. And this it's probably given all of us some moments for pause, to consider things a little bit more specifically. We're still in the season of Pisces and will be for the next 3 weeks. Here's a term that I have personally been considering as of late, and this is compassion. Now, a person may ask, where do you find compassion when you look at an astrological chart? It is there. I think that one of the archetypes that compassion dwells within is the water signs. But more specifically, it is a 12th house Piscean consideration. What's in your 12th house? When I was very early on, 50 plus years ago, I was given the statement that you don't get into anybody's 12th house without an invitation, as well as the other sayings that the 12th house is the house of self-undoing. It is your hidden enemies. It is an escape platform. Yes, while these all are true, Pisces and the 12th house is where our consideration is right now. Behind me here in this image is Jupiter. This is a recent NASA photo of Jupiter. And Jupiter is the traditional ruler for Pisces. It is in Pisces, and it is rapidly approaching a conjunction with Neptune, what is considered the modern ruler of Pisces. So there's a lot of Piscean energy available and on the move right now for us here on planet Earth. Back to compassion. What might be the experiences that you have that bring up compassion? It's going to likely be unique in some fashion for each one of us. In my own particular astrological makeup, I have no planets in water signs. And so the discovery, the quest for what might trigger compassion within myself is part of my lifelong journey. I've been around long enough to have discovered the things that trigger compassion in my own makeup more readily than something that might trigger something else. For me, when I perceive open and ready interaction between a human soul and another human soul, or a pet, or any animal for that matter, where the energy of love pervades the experience. You know, there are many times in movies, the news, where what is being shown is a true heartfelt openness, one to another, where forgiveness is being expressed openly for crimes or attitudes that were extremely misaligned, led us to do things to our fellow man, to the animals of the planet, to the planet itself. When this hits home, oftentimes it brings up tears within me, a sadness, yet at the same time, there's a joy peripheral to this, that an awakening is transpiring, where heart to heart and soul to soul, we have openly and willingly opened ourselves into a shared space with another. This is the realm of Pisces. Yes, there's a Venetian thing. And where is that Pisces in your chart? Is it in the 5th house? Does your love for children often cause you to really love the energy and the vibrancy of the openness that they represent? Is it in your 3rd house? Do you experience learning? I mean, real true learning, not the forced kind of learning things of most of our modern education, but the process of experiencing something innately felt as a knowing process. That is true learning, because it changes you. And that's what true learning does. Is that Pisces in the 9th house? Do you often sense a distant vision that beckons your participation in something far larger than you had ever comprehended to this point? That's compassion. That is the Piscean quest for what's next. Where could my heart grow just a little bit broader. Anyway, Pisces, kind of looking at a few of the houses. I think if you want to get more specific than that, you basically have to be looking at your own chart and see, where's Pisces? Where is Jupiter? What does Neptune have to say to you in your makeup? How open are you to compassion? It's a very malleable zone to interact with. It's not predictable. Now, let's consider the astrology coming up for this week. Since we're in the land of Pisces, and I'm doing this on Monday, by the way, the sun is in Pisces. So that ball of fiery energy that, inspires us to be and to, it ignites a certain level of passion within us, is in that realm of the unlimited Piscean frontier and is quickly approaching Jupiter and Pisces. Let me show you very quickly the chart for today. There you can see it. The sun, only 3 degrees away from Jupiter. By the way, did you know that Jupiter is only a fraction away from becoming a sun itself? It has volatiles, fuel. It's huge, the largest planet in our solar system. You have to wonder, what size of spark might it take to ignite it? I don't mean to offer this to scare you, but let's bring it back home. How is that Jupiter experience in your world? And what might it take? What kind of spark might it take to ignite that level of compassion within you? Jupiter takes 12 years approximately to make the circuit of the zodiac, which means about 1 sign per year. We're in the Piscean part right now. Anyway, also looking at this chart, what you will notice is that Venus and Mars up here in Capricorn are both at 26 degrees. Pluto is at 27 degrees. I'm always struck that whenever Mars and Pluto, Mars, the traditional ruler of Scorpio, and Pluto, the planet that has been given modern affinity with that same sign, come together, danger. I think that's the right term to utilize for this kind of a conjunction. Danger is in the air. Mars, the god of war, and Pluto, the god of death, dancing together. It's a perspective that if you happen to be one of the majority of people on planet Earth that are terrified of the death spectrum, whenever these two planets dance together, just might make you more than a little uneasy. This is transpiring in the sign of Capricorn, which has to do with many things, one of which is leadership or government, big business. It's a level of organizational presence that is aimed at control. Another term not often necessarily recognized as Capricornian is integrity. You have to ask yourself, how much integrity is being demonstrated within the realms of the governing factors seemingly in control on planet Earth currently? Essay question, not something that you can just go yes or no to. During this week, we're going to experience Mars crossing over Pluto. Is it? Let's see. Oh yeah, definitely this week. You know, they're only a degree apart. And as we move the chart ahead just one day, you'll also notice before I move it here, since we're still in Monday, you see the moon right here at the very end of Aquarius. This is, by the way, this is a Tuesday chart that we're looking at right here. So this is tomorrow. The moon is approaching its next new moon, which will actually happen on Wednesday. Just for giggles, yeah, I have to figure out how to make it so that this chart can move as a single chart, but as soon as I bump it ahead a day, a secondary chart shows up, which is the transit chart. So what we have here is March 1st with a March 2nd chart around the outside, which is Tuesday. No, that's Wednesday. And on Wednesday, you can kind of see that Mars has moved into the 27 degrees with Pluto, trailing not that far behind. 26 degrees, 56 minutes is Venus, because these two planets have been moving in parallel or in conjunction for a while now, and will continue to do so on into the beginning stages of Aquarius. So on Tuesday, we're going to have a new moon. It's going to be here at 12 degrees of Pisces, which is only 2 degrees away from Jupiter. So once again, let's consider, what does a new moon ask of us? It's It's a beginning point of a new cycle. This is a cycle beginning in the realm of Pisces with the ruler of Pisces right there. Actually, both rulers of Pisces are quite close to this. So I think we're being asked to take it to heart, bring it in real close. How willing am I as a human being here on planet Earth currently to be open enough within my own capacities to not shut out others, to have a place in my heart where others are welcome and where the discovery of far deeper aspects of who we as human beings are or can be if we really open up that level of heart connection, not only with one another, but with all factions of life. This is the pondering perspective that this new moon is asking us to set our intentions by for this next lunar cycle. What else is going on this same day? Look at that. Mercury has caught up with Saturn. Mercury, how we think, how we speak, is coming into the realm of limitation. But as I've mentioned before, Aquarian rules are not exactly of the same tenure as Capricorn rules. Capricorn rules can appear to be, if integrity is not in place, to be a bit on the harsh side. In Aquarius, it's more like kind of a hope. I think hope is a good word for Aquarius, where this is transpiring. Also, the 11th house is hope for a perspective that has a bit more breadth to it than oftentimes Saturn restriction seems to imply. How we think Mercury dancing with this Saturn as this new moon is taking place in this Aquarian archetype, the thoughts, the theoretical limitations of what it is that is possible at a humanitarian level. There's another good Aquarian term, being infused or infusing this new Pisces moon experience, asking us, how in touch with you am I? Is there any kind of barrier that might exist between us, real or imagined? And how strong or dynamic is that? Where did it come from? Who put it there? Did I learn it? I get the image of, we're going to go back to an image here. This isn't the Earth, but it is for this particular thought that I'm going to express is, you can see lines of delineation of different energy experiences going on Jupiter, but it's still one planet, just as the Earth is. We have division lines of countries, states, drawn. And they're, theoretically, if you look at planet Earth from space, you don't see those lines. You see a planet covered with water, a large percentage, and Earth, snow-capped mountains, clouds. And the closer you get, you see birds flying over. They aren't paying any attention to those theoretical lines that have been drawn on the planet. These are human inventions designed to do what? To separate us one from another. For what reasons? Political, economic, gender, race. There are so many versions of division that we as humans have invented. That's right, you heard me, have invented and taught to our children. And this has gone on for such a long time that there are only some of us aware that these are human mental inventions. In the long footprint of history, all humans originated in Africa, and through a long, very long process, moved out across the globe and took on characteristics that changed us, changed our skin color, changed the archetypal energies of what we tune into. But still at the core, we all came out of the same origination. We are all human. We all have red blood. We all live, we all die. Now, what might be the reason for the living and the dying? There it gets a little more complicated. So my thoughts are going in so many different directions at the moment. Oh my goodness. Let's go back to the chart. Okay. This is Wednesday on the out day. We have the new moon. We have this Mercury-Saturn conjunction, what we talked about. We have Mars has moved into the same degree as Pluto. Danger is in the air. Let's move it one more day forward. See what kind of excitement we can stir up. Oh, look, Pluto has now become sandwiched between Mars and Venus, the two planets traveling in conjunction. Venus and Mars, the masculine, feminine, the receptive and aggressive natures, that we tune into, are they not perhaps vying for our attention? With that Pluto sitting in between them right now? Pluto's perspective, and a perspective that we often don't pay homage to, is it that it is far more than just the god of death. Perhaps the reason for this is because our version of what death is has a rather terminal and limited definition. You can kind of almost feel a Saturnian cloak being put over the experience of death that says, you can't escape this death idea. Well, what is exactly that death idea that we bought into that terrifies us? It's not like it's something that in our human capacities, there's a built-in escape mechanism from it that is taught to us. You notice I'm putting it in that caveat, and the reason why is because there is an escape mechanism, but we're not taught it. The escape mechanism is the recognition that we are way more than just these physical human capacities. There is an animation factor, the soul, that incorporates into the physical body to learn things in the experience of planetary incarnation. And that soul never really dies. There's that escape mechanism I was talking about. It's a shift in awareness to the fact that there is an aspect to us that is far larger than the outer perimeters of this physical being that we inhabit. Another essay thing for you to think on there. So here we are. The new moon has transpired. I'm going to move myself down here so I can actually see what day we're talking about. It's Thursday. Yeah, don't pay attention to the center one. The center one is a Tuesday chart. So March 1st. And this sandwiching, that's where I was. The sandwiching with Pluto in the middle. Pluto's been given a bad rap. And part of the reason for that is because the process of disintegration that is represented by Pluto is, we often lose track of the necessity for the recycling of the elements of the earth. A tree in the forest gets so old, and after a while, for whatever conditions, falls to the earth. I'm not talking about the loggers coming and logging them, but through natural selection. And once it falls to the earth, it begins the process of releasing all the material that it drew up from the earth, from the air, from the moisture of the surrounding waters, back into the earth. It is the same for any of us as a human. We became the physical being that we are by utilizing all these very same elements that the tree used, or any plant, or any animal. And once we are done with this, once our soul has learned the lessons that it needs to learn, it has to release it back into the fold of life. And the key there is, I'm not releasing it to death, I'm releasing it into the fold of life, because life is an always factor. You know, we may not necessarily recognize the forms that life varies or evolves into, but if you look through the history of time, what you'll see is that life has always been existent in forms that they change, they evolve, but it's all it is it's a revolution of what came from the earth back into the earth, and is animated by soul awareness. Everything has a soul. Animals have a soul, plants have a soul, the earth has a soul. All the planets, which is why I do astrology, is to bring that awareness of the soul energy that each of these planets has to share with us in our makeup, to utilize in our own individual evolution and collectively. So Pluto, well, I'm going to keep coming back to Pluto because Pluto, it's a big player right now on planet Earth. You know, for the United States, we just had our first Pluto return, exact return on Sunday last week. And that was, you know, that's just, you know, for the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Because I'm sure if you were to query the indigenous inhabitants that we were essentially attempted to replace, that already occupied this American continent, you get a very different perspective. And I think being aware of that perspective can actually allow us to recognize a much more in tune perspective with our environment, with our planet, in a way that will be able to use the plutonic composting situation in a way where we can invite the dissolution of factors which are no longer harmoniously or beneficial to us, to be composted back into this earthly realm, so that new life and new birth can utilize a more well-rounded version of those natural elements as inherent aspects of who we really are. So that moon being sandwiched between Mars and Venus right now might be asking us, how much are you willing to let go of? Are there aspects of human relationship, masculine and feminine, that may not be being lived in as creative a fashion as is possible? You know, there's a substantial shift in the potential of what we human beings can accomplish if in tune with our natural environment here on planet Earth, that has just barely been scratched. Oh yeah, we're all so excited about the technological innovations and everything. But the drive factor that has essentially been utilizing it is still keeping from us an awareness of a far more inclusive state of being that we are all a part of. What do you think about that? Okay, there's a lot of things astrologically going on this week. This one probably would be right at the top of the pile, as well as the new moon. They're all relevant. It's just how tuned into any of them we might find ourselves. You can kind of see that the sun and Pluto are dancing so very close to each other. Well, Friday, the sun catches up with Jupiter. I want you to grasp solar energy. This is a force of awakening. Every day, as we roll around, the sun rises over the eastern horizons and beckons us to come out into the day process. This is the sun's energy. It's an invitation to be alive and awake. Now, put that with Jupiter, the largest planet in the solar system, that carries with it the energy signature of how much larger can we expand the awareness of anything we touch. So the sun and Jupiter coming together in Pisces holds within its contextual moment an opportunity to awaken to aspects of being that are far deeper and more profound than most experience in their average everyday life. And yet at the same time, it is there beckoning our attention if we but could still our hearts and definitely still our minds, which lead us often astray, in an effective enough way to recognize the largeness of the soul beings that we really are. All of us, all of life on planet Earth sits in that, Libra kind of balance, trying to determine, oh, have I gone too far one way? And, oh, maybe I had to go back, and oh, now I'm going too far with the other way. And does it ever really reach balance? I don't know. I do know that Venusian seeking of level is always in play. And right now with, and on this day, you'll see that our conjunction of Venus and Mars have now gone to the next degree beyond Jupiter. What do you think, or what might you in your world, what might you have gleaned from the insight and the perspective of what Pluto was trying to offer into the experience of what relationship can be? And this is not just relationship with one another, but this is relationship with all of life. Are you willing to go there? Are there places within you that you feel, hollow? Like it's hollow because no one has pointed out to you before that option. Doesn't make it not so. You just haven't lived into it yet. And we're at Friday now. Let's see what the rest of the week brings here. We'll remove the chart ahead one day. Venus and Mars now at 29 degrees on Saturday. See Saturday over here. At 29 degrees on Saturday, which means that on Sunday, when we wrap up this week, a substantial energy shift. Both Venus and Mars, you'll notice also that Venus has shifted to the other side of Mars because Venus normally moves faster than Mars, but because of the Venus retrograde when Mars caught up to it, it took Venus a while to, get up that, get that motor revving enough so that it could start moving at the speed that it normally moves at. It's a lot closer to the sun, so it's always going to move faster than Mars. Well, being on Sunday, they both move into Aquarius out of the Capricorn archetype. And so the shift of that whole paradigm of relationship has moved from, how best to relate to those versions of who I want to rule over. That's a Capricornian. It's not the only Capricornian perspective, but it is one that is often overplayed without the recognition of the integrity and the potential wisdom of what it means to really rule. A good ruler will essentially aim for the lowest echelon of those he rules over as having a substantial bearing on the effectiveness of what the rules are trying to attain. Because if any are left out, all are left out. I think you've probably heard that somewhere before. So that shift from that kind of a potential relationship of, often Mars, Pluto can be seen as, and Capricornian essence as power over things, as opposed to being power with things. When this relationship matrix of the receptive and overt energies of Mars and Venus enter Aquarius, there's a very different hat that's put on. And that hat says that all people are important. Groups of people who think similarly are drawn together through the Aquarian energy, wherever that Aquarian part is in you, to facilitate investigating and comparing notes as to where can we take this? How can we expand upon this kind of potential interaction with one another in a way that it will grow potential of how we as humanity might be more of a community experience than just a bunch of individuals. So that Sunday shift it's pretty big because they're coming in both at the same time. And at the first part of 2020, both Saturn and Jupiter did exactly that same thing on, I believe it was January 1st or real early in January of 2020, came into Aquarius. Saturn is still in Aquarius because it moves a heck of a lot slower, since it takes about 30 years, 28 to 30 years to make its orbit around the sun. Anyway, astrology is just a tool. We as human beings are continuously invited to utilize the tools that have been given to us. Astrology, like anything, can be misused. Depends on who is using it and what their aim is as to what the effectiveness of what can transpire is going to be. I know that I don't aim small with my version of astrology, my version of life. It is. It's a tool of life. It's a tool that can, like any tool, when used in its own unique way, can bring us into a more dynamic integration with our soul. Our soul comes to earth with the purpose of growth. Are you growing? Or do you feel stagnant? I do astrological readings. I have done so for the last 50 years. If you're interested in a reading, follow the links to my website. We have things to discuss. That's all for this week. Thanks. And one last apology. I put the wrong date when I put out last week's, because I'm always living a week or two ahead when I'm looking at the astrological chart. So I put out the dates for this week on last week's astrology, but I did the interpretation for last week's astrology. Welcome to this week. Let's go on with the adventure. Absolutely. Ciao for now. We'll do it again next week.